Welcome back. It's Monday, so it is time to talk about the AHL and do a little bit of a recap and a look at how things are going in the AHL. As we're about 10 games into the season for most teams, right? And today I'm wearing my Stockton Heat jersey. You can see the American flag on one shoulder and California on the other. Now, whether or not these end up getting a complete revamp, considering the Calgary Flames have revamped theirs, hasn't happened yet, doesn't mean it won't. So, the Ontario Reign had a pretty good run to start the season, and Martin Frk's a huge part of that. He had 4 goals and 6 assists in 3 games, so that's a pretty good week, and he becomes the player of the week in the AHL with that total, and he has 18 points in 10 games. He leads the league in scoring. So he takes that spot from Perunovic, had been the leading scorer. Perunovic, a player that St. Louis had wanted to call up this past week when they had all the protocols going on, and the NHL said no. So the relaxing of the hard cap, the NHL said no to St. Louis, the same as they had to Toronto and other teams. And so, Frk does manage to become the number 1 scorer. Whether or not he ends up playing for LA this year is still up in the air because he did have chemistry with Velarde a couple of seasons ago. I think with Frk, it's just a matter of him not being in the top 6 plans for LA. They don't envision him as a bottom 6 forward either. And so he plays top 6 minutes in the AHL, and he does quite well. And there are a lot of players that have these kinds of careers, and we as fans look at their AHL totals and say, wow, he should be an NHLer, but there aren't enough top 6 jobs to go around. And so that's why you end up seeing guys playing in the AHL who have a lot of skill. They can absolutely score. They might be a little bit undersized. Maybe they're a little bit on the slower side than the guys that are ahead of them on the AHL, on the NHL roster. But yeah, so Frk hopefully ends up back with the Kings at some point this season, but he's doing very well for the Reign right now. Colorado news. So Colorado Eagles and a player who's going to end up in the Colorado Avalanche lineup again soon, I would think. Alex Newhook, 11 points in 10 games for him. That's a pretty good clip he's scoring on. Definitely better than he would have in the NHL, but yeah, Newhook having a very good season, and definitely good news if you're a Colorado fan. Now, interestingly enough, the Belleville Senators lost Brandstrom. Brandstrom gets called up by the Ottawa Senators, but I'm just gonna point this out. Bernard Docker, who doesn't need waivers and he's younger, 10. I don't think Brandstrom needs waivers right now either. But 2 goals and assists, 3 points for Bernard Docker, and he's a +3. He was very impressive late in the season when they called him up last year. Brandstrom, 1 goal, 2 assists, 3 points. He's a -5. So plus-minus wise, he is 8 points below Bernard Docker. So either this means Bernard Docker is playing more sheltered minutes, or maybe he's just the better defenseman at this point. But Brandstrom's the one they've called up right now, and so we'll see whether or not Bernard Docker gets the call. I've seen Senators fans online wanting him to get called up, and the numbers would tell you he's a pretty good defenseman. Richard Panik. So Bridgeport Islanders. This is a player, of course, that I always use images of Richard Panik for the Panic Index. And it doesn't look like I'm going to get any NHL images from him this year, which is upsetting because that means there's a finite amount of images I could use for the Panic Index thumbnail. But he has 2 goals for Bridgeport in 8 games. He's a -8. So, yeah, not great numbers. Probably not leading to him being recalled by the New York Islanders anytime soon. And, so, again, I probably won't be getting NHL level thumbnails of Panik this year. But there you go. Now, on the special teams note, the league leader at power play, Utica, 29.4%. Very good power play. Leader in penalty killing, that's Syracuse at 90%. That's a fantastic number. Texas has been shorthanded the most. They've been shorthanded 50 times. They are 82% on the penalty kill with that number. Colorado leads with 57 power plays, and it's a good one, 24.6% for Colorado on their power plays. And so, yeah, Colorado's got that going for them. They got Newhook going for them. But the league leader is Utica, 7-0-0-0. And so there's 4 columns in the AHL records. The 4th column is shootout losses. The 3rd column is overtime losses. I'm kind of surprised we don't do that in the NHL. I think eventually we do have 4 columns for the win-loss record of teams in the NHL. But yeah, Ontario shows how this would work. Ontario has 9 wins and 1 shootout loss. Stockton, these guys right here, 7 wins, and 1 overtime loss. So Utica, Ontario, Stockton are the only 3 teams left without a defeat in regulation. Utica hasn't tasted defeat at all. So yeah, that's a pretty good start for Utica. How are things going for the team that played in Utica last year? Not great. Laval and Abbotsford are both mired in winless streaks. 0-3-1. Abbotsford unable to come out with a victory last weekend against Ontario, and this weekend against Stockton, they were unable to get a victory either. So a bit of a rough patch here for Ontario or Abbotsford, who find themselves at 3-4-2. Believe Laval's at 4-5-1. So yeah, Montreal and Vancouver's AHL rosters going through a bit of a rough patch. Interesting note too on Peyton Krebs. So Peyton Krebs is picked up by the Buffalo Sabres in the Jack Eichel deal. They send him immediately to Rochester. There was no let's stick him in the Buffalo lineup. They sent him immediately to Rochester. And they had him working with various line mates in his debut on Friday. It was a game they lost 4-1 against Toronto. But the important thing is they had him working with both Jack Quinn and JJ Peterka at points during that game. So it looks like Krebs is going to play a major role for them. He did have 5 assists in 2 games with Henderson earlier in the year. So he sounds excited. There was an article about him going to Rochester and how he feels about the idea of playing in the Buffalo organization. He's saying all the right things, as players often do when they're traded to another organization. And he says it kind of feels like you're starting over, and he's excited about it. So he also did get hurt in the game on Friday, but they're saying that he should be fine. It's no big deal. He should be okay. They do play on Wednesday. I believe they're against Wilkes-Barre on Wednesday. And then they've got a couple of games on the weekend as well. So it's going to be a busy week for them, but they only had the 1 game on Friday this past weekend. So yeah, we'll see how Krebs fits in with Rochester. And if he ends up playing a role with Quinn and Peterka. Because for Buffalo right now, whatever they do at the NHL level is fine. So if they end up flaming out, I don't think management's going to be that upset about it, right? If they end up being bottom 5 in the NHL. It's about having these kids ready to come in and play as soon as next year. So to have Krebs down there with Quinn and Peterka, to give them a lot of ice time, to give them a lot of time to develop that chemistry, might be the best move, both for Buffalo as well as for Krebs and the other youngsters. Don't rush them into the lineup, or else you end up risking seeing these guys as busts at the NHL level a little bit more starkly than they might otherwise be. So there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.